Bridget Tipton.
Here.
All are present.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, anyone who is going to be speaking to the board today will need to take an oath. And
Bridget Tipton.
Eric will be doing that at this point.
Anyone who's testifying, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give before the Board of Architecture Review Board shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, our first project is Kent Social Services at 1066 South Water Street. And who is going to be doing that?
That'd be me, Luke Kraft from DS Architecture.
Great. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
Oh, he's gonna do it. Never mind. Good.
I thought you had to minimize that and take it off the laptop.
Let me,
You're going to put it up? Okay, good.
yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Luke Kraft from DS Architecture. And we're here to look at Kent Social Services and the additions planned. Of course, in light of our current health pandemic, the need for this project is more important than ever. I can't directly speak to the exact numbers. I know Mark's on here and he can if that's a question, but I know there's an increase in demand. And so we're excited to be a part of this project, and we look forward to it moving forward, hopefully, and a successful project to help out the needs of the Kent community. From a functionality standpoint, there are two main components. It's the pantry and the serving of hot meals. And the intent of this project aims to enhance the functionality of both of those operations. Surprisingly, at least to me, the majority of the people that are served are actually through the pantry. So the design intends to create a dedicated space for that service. So what you see on the screen now is the existing conditions plan. Actually, it's a demolition plan. And this main large open space is kind of a combination of dining and pantry. So all kind of happens within that space. And then the intention is to create an addition off the back. It's only 130 square feet, but then kind of reimagine some of the interior so that there's a dedicated pantry space to serve those needs. And then on the front of the building, which faces east, there'll be a 650 square foot addition here that expands the dining room for that portion that was taken away for the dedicated pantry. Then in addition, there's some interior renovations that include accessible restrooms, kitchen area improvements, and an expanded servery. So overall, the functionality of the building really improves to serve the needs. I'll kind of jump right into some of the exterior images right off Water Street. The existing building was constructed in the early 70s, and there really hasn't been much change to the building since then. So the aim of this project is to kind of bring it up into modern times with a look of a kind of a respected current store and restaurant, kind of taking away any kind of stigma there might be of using such a facility. So the design really takes cues from the existing building and the angled roof forms through the idea of materiality of brick and siding. So we took the dark brick from the existing and we used that to kind of create the new entry. And then we kind of cued off that and have lap siding that's fiber cement for long maintenance, durable product. We took the cue of the strong horizontal structural member and kind of continued it all the way through this new front addition, just to kind of keep that datum line going across. And that's kind of the main portion of the exterior design. I'm going to skim through a couple other images. So this is the southeast corner. You see the new dining room expansion here in the corner. These are some new windows into the dining space. And then this is that separate entry for the pantry in the southwest corner. So just an overall improved appearance to the building. The entrance also creates a better presence off of the streets. Right now it's kind of tucked away and kind of hidden. So trying to make it a little more pronounced, a little more seen. just another image of the front of the building. And of course, we all know winter's coming up, right? So we had a little winter shot here for you. But what's nice about this one, kind of shows the planned outdoor seating area, and I'll get to the site plan in just a second. But that's a kind of a key feature to the intent of the project. And then also we have worked with PARTA, and this will be a stop for the bus system. So that's been accommodated in the site plan.
Get this recommendation on here. Review, okay, that's fine.
Look at the site plan here. Some of the big improvements of the site plan are new pavement. And actually, we're reducing overall asphalt pavement. So currently, where we see dining and garden is all asphalt. So we're removing that and putting in this outdoor seating area and putting in an area for community garden. Along the west of the property, it's going to take care of the stormwater management of the property. There'll be a stone infiltration basin along the west part of the property. Here's the PARTA drop off that we discussed earlier. And then under a separate submittal, separate review, they're actually getting a new sign as well. So overall, the project, the site is really improving in its softscape and its hardscape, and just a visual presence of the entry of the building. And that's really kind of the bulk of the appearance from an architectural review standpoint that we're looking at. I did want to quickly show some of the materials that are specific. The brick we're proposing is an Endicott dark iron spot. It's probably not that dissimilar from the nearby McDonald's, to be honest with you. And then the siding is a James Hardie and these are directly off the manufacturer's website. So these are very close renditions of what it would be, and they tie very nicely into what the rendering shows as well. So again, just a modern and contemporary feel that we believe blends in well with the existing streetscape.
Great. I just had a question. I really like the idea that the bus is actually going around the building and coming out and dropping off people close into the building. And also the outside seating, of course, in today's day, that's very important.
Yes.
I noticed you had it. Didn't seem to be any snow on the ground when the trees were covered with snow. So maybe you can have some outside heaters.
Right.
But frankly, I think the building is rather attractive. So, it was built as an L&K. It was not a highly desirable building at the time, but you've certainly done a wonderful job with it, I think. And I'm sure that some of the architects here will have some comments, but that's all I had to say about it. Who else has comments on this building or questions?
I had a couple of questions about materials and stuff, but he's answered those, so
Okay.
good with that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll just
Bridget?
add that I think that the roof over the new entry is going to be really important. Right now, the entry is under the roof that's just beyond, and you kind of come at it from the side. So reorienting the people who come to this building frequently, I mean, the entry is really prominent and just, it's very clear, even though it's a change about how you would approach and enter the building. So I think that's really well done. And this isn't what we're here to do, but the pantry space that you've added just brings so much dignity to that process. It's a really, really nice addition and change to the building. It's great.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's a great improvement to the building. It's always was kind of a throwback to the 60s architecture, but this is a huge improvement, Luke. So,
Right, thank
very
you.
good.
I guess I just like to piggyback on with obviously it's a great improvement to the building. It looks a lot nicer than it is existing. And since this is not in the overlay district, we don't have I would have more thoughts on the contemporary look, how it ties in with the design guidelines, because I don't think it does. And I'm not a fan of the single wedge form of the main entry. It definitely does define the entry, but I'm just not a fan of the single wedge that's going on there.
Okay.
Anybody else? Bridget, what do we need to do here? Is this just a recommendation to the planning commission?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And the recommendation would be to approve it as presented?
That would work as presented at today's meeting.
Okay. Would anyone like to offer that?
I'll make that motion
Is there
to
a sec-
recommend.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Very good. I think, I know that building is almost like a community center for that area, and it's just a wonderful addition. You've done a nice job.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if we can move on to the Kent Apartments, 127 Franklin Avenue. And who's here to talk about that?
Adam Britanniak,
Adam?
Steve Jones, both with LDA Architects.
Okay, and you're on the phone, right?
Yes.
So you don't have anything to show us. Heather, do you have something to show us or?
No, we do. I'm just trying to share a screen right now.
Okay.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay. Okay, yep, we presented informally a number of weeks ago, but, so I might breeze through some of this that we've seen before, but if we want to go back and discuss, of course, we can do that.
Go ahead.
But for the Kent Apartments, a general site map, just to give us some context, our site in red there towards the center of downtown. And then the next slide, just kind of in sight, we're zooming in to see some of the immediate context in the area, proximity to the river, which was a big pull for design elements. And then how we're just off of Franklin Avenue. A couple of the like ground view photos for some context as far as along the street. Just simple from Google Earth. Another sheet with some of those contexts from Water Street, a little bit there. Just a few shots. And then a kind of a more or less abstract version of the site. And you can see in red the parking area across it. The site's also going to include and the building footprint in place there in the general Kent downtown area. Yeah, just a zoomed in version, not too directly pertaining to our conversation today, but general sense of the apartment unit numbers will be 47 of them in this area. And just, yeah, being directly along Franklin, you can see kind of the figure ground of the building and site there. Just to quickly run through kind of the narrative for the design. We looked at kind of the modes of industry throughout Kent and throughout the years of Kent's development, going back to its early history and involved with Davy Tree, involved with the industry and the mill and using of the river and the early economics of Kent and how it kind of developed. And then it's transitioned to kind of like this university hub, essentially. So starting with the site expense and in that second diagram there with the red arrows, figuring out where the main entry is and then a secondary entry. And then kind of placing our vertical circulation, and then the sun path is taken into account in views outward, which developed our exterior shape to take advantage of sunlight and views of downtown area. And then we kind of have an apartment distribution there at the bottom right corner. So moving on, these are just sort of some typical floor plans, so we'll kind of breeze through them a little bit quickly here. The second floor plan is just an apartment. And then a third floor plan, which is like typical. This extends to the 3 floors above this as well, and you can start to see where the bay windows come into play at the third floor, just to make sure the first 2 floors are open from any kind of ground traffic. Looking at downtown and kind of just playing off of the existing materials and pulling some color tones and some samples of brick and how it's been used and some of the materiality in general to kind of keep aligning with what's downtown. There's another image of the the other two apartment buildings, same kind of deal of trying to pull some materiality to make something that reflects but doesn't copy what's already there in downtown. This is kind of getting into some of the nuts and bolts of the design. We have a couple of things pulled off to show some the balcony use that we'll have there. And then there's a little plan diagram, as you can see, that has a 0, 1 and 0, 2. That's like roughly where the individual is standing for the two renderings on this sheet. Just showing some of how the brick was incorporated and some of the changes that were made from our last informal review, and getting some more tonality in the brick and some variation, some banding, and some brick samples that more relate to downtown Kent area. And then you can see in the bottom right corner how there's that little kind of courtyard between the two buildings, which is, we'll get to that, but this is just the opposite corner, a little larger, to see some of the materials being called out and where they're going. So we'll have a kind of tan or sandish color stone base just at the very ground, just not too much more than between a foot or two for some salt and water protection and to give it a grounding. And then we're doing a darker base brick and topper to keep it visually connected, and then a lighter field brick between with a brick banding going across each floor level line with the floor level and the sill level all the way up. It's just a slightly different tone between the lighter and darker brick to give some contrast there, with the bays being a Nichiha like wood panel piece. So, and then yeah, just same rendering, just a little larger without the material pulled off to the side, get a little easier look. And then the last little bit as we're kind of going through here is just some representations of it, just a couple renderings to give an understanding. Like same corner view, just larger. From the side, there's kind of conversations, outside of this presentation that will work with developing the parking area to give the aesthetic appeal that it deserves, and fixing that area up so that looks very nice. And then from the, I guess, not really the back of the building, because we're kind of treating it as if there is no back of the building, but from the east side, from Water Street, looking down, and then this courtyard space in between. We'll have some amenity for the tenants to be able to come in through there, and you can kind of see there's a side access door right there, kind of where that person's standing. And then the last 4 sheets are just the line drawing elevations, not necessarily something, I'm just flipping fast because these are a little bit just for record essentially. But I think that's it for the presentation. I'll just go back to this image for any kind of discussions or questions.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you. I'm not sure about material. Is the lighter color, is that a brick? It is a brick.
Yeah.
Charcoal grace. The only thing that is not brick is that
those vertical bay window areas, those are like a type of faux wood look that'll be in the kind of tone or color range of some brick, but slightly different to stand out.
Yeah, okay. And what is the cap on the building? What do you have at the very top?
There is none.
You don't have a cap on it.
There's just a different brick banding color at the very top there, and it has it's a very slight, but there is a little bit of a profile to it. But there's just kind of like 2 color bandings at the top to kind of keep it grounded.
No.
Well, I recognize that you're using the windows to take advantage of the views, and I think there are going to be some beautiful views there. I don't have a problem with that. I am a little concerned about the fact that I think the cap could be a little more prominent or a little bit more easily understood. But that's my only comment. But go ahead, guys. Is it Kevin?
I have a few points to make.
Okay.
So this is in the overlay district, and so we're subject to the design guidelines. And what I see here is a building, the typology does not fit with the style of the district. And so I would refer you to the design guidelines to use as a reference for the forms and the massings of this building. One of the things that Howard just touched on was the cap of the building. You know, as you went back and pointed out some of the example buildings in the area, what you'll see there is a continuous top to the form. And what we're being presented today doesn't have that. Yeah, there's some different articulation that's segmented along the top of the building, but you know, it doesn't go continuously along that length. And I can see where you're taking advantage of the views by angling the windows, but it just, what it creates with the form of the building, to me, just does not fit in with the context of the district. That's my preliminary reaction.
I would tend to agree with Kevin. It's quite a digression from the architecture in the general area, and the colors help mute it a little, but still, it really will stand out. You know, maybe not in a good way with the rest of the buildings on that street. Maybe if it was across the street from the Davy building or something, it might fit in a little better, but not right at this location.
Bridget or
Yeah. So I think the early design process that you kind of walked us through, where you're referencing some of the industrial forms and the sawtooth roof in particular, and the way that you've reinterpreted that here. I mean, it's clearly a contemporary building in the sense that it's being built right now. I don't mean contemporary in the stylistic term, but contemporary in that it's being built of this current period. So I like the reinterpretation of those sawtooth roofs and unifying them around this idea of a bay window. And I think that that's a really nice connection between the research that you've done and those kind of, again, historical industrial forms. Of course, they don't exist in the district right now, but I don't think that you're introducing them in a way that's offensive to kind of what's around, particularly because you are citing that historical reference as the influence for those windows in particular. I think that the wood is a really interesting choice of material, and to Kevin's comment about the cap, I think that the way that you've applied the wood material on those forms makes a lot of sense. I think if there was a continuous cap around the top of that, formally it would not make sense in the way that you're applying material. So I appreciate that you do have that cap in the brick area and that the majority of the building is now brick. We're not even seeing metal as you had in a previous version. So I like the wood as a I don't know, as a new kind of material that you're introducing here. And again, the way that you've applied it makes sense formally. To have a cap that wraps that sawtooth piece wouldn't make sense. I have a couple of questions though. In the earlier slides, there are quite a few references of the metal shutter awning. Can you help me understand where that's being applied exactly? Is it just above the very highest balcony? Or are there other locations?
Awning.
It's on the top right of one of the slides. Yeah, that slide
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The idea is there was going to be some type of a sunshade awning at the very top, just for that top balcony. And so there was a couple that were slightly perforated, and then that orange one. That orange one is an example, not necessarily a color option, but of a solid version. And so, so these are still slightly up for interpretation, but we're at this point, the top would be these solid overhangs that, I mean, it's the whole situation of each balcony in the previous floor provides the roof for the floor below, except for the top. So the top needs some sort of a protection. So that's where those are coming in.
Okay.
And you can kind of see them on both sides, like in the bottom right, same kind of deal. It's just providing the same protection for the top balcony.
So I guess my question is about, you're just showing a few different options. The presence of them on the building, there will really just be two of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think the only other ones there will be is I don't know, can you see my mouse actually?
Yes.
Okay, so there's another row of balconies right here, and there will be just a small one at the top. But the as far as like any other on the outside from here or from Water Street's view, I'm cycling fast just to get to it, but there's none on this side.
Understood.
Yeah, you can see a little bit, like you can almost see it through the window there. That's like the roof portion for this balcony. But there's only really balconies that are inside that courtyard area. So then there was really, other than those two that you're pointing out, like this one here and this one, you can almost see this one in the shade right there. That's about it.
Okay. I have one more question.
Yeah.
On the elevations, the wood material is running horizontally in the hatch. Are we to be referencing the rendering here where it's oriented vertically?
It would have to be, you're talking about the wood material? It would be vertical.
Okay.
Okay. Dennis, do you have questions?
On the line drawings of the elevations, you show those horizontal bands as being soldier course.
Yeah.
But in the renderings, it shows them as just a different color brick. I guess I wouldn't clarify that.
Yeah, sure. I think that the line drawings might be a little outdated in a sense where the renderings are the truest form. So there, we narrowed the banding because the soldier course is a little bit too thick and seemed to like be a little, I don't know, for lack of a better term, too strong. And so we were going to do just two coursing horizontal brick band going across, but of a different type of brick, that like slightly different color that you're seeing.
Okay, okay. I think that's a good idea, adding that second band. The renderings I have don't show that, but that helps give some more horizontal emphasis to the building because it is going to be a tall building.
Yeah, that's
And,
kind of the point of it, is we're trying to make it seem a little more horizontal and less vertical.
Right. And then
Okay.
the other note I had was, again, concerning the parapet. I think the parapet should be all one height. There's nothing on any of the other drawings that have, the varying heights of that thing. And I think that would help tie it together and also give it a more of a horizontal look to it.
Yeah, I guess I understand. I think the concern we had was when we gave that experiment, it like kind of upset the proportions of those bays. It looked a little, it looked less fine-tuned actually. However, I perfectly understand the look for having a top, which is why we tried to do like the double banding at the top, so close of different color, and they're a little thicker, just to give that appeal or that view versus the thinner bands that are throughout the center, if that makes sense.
Okay,
As far as explaining the logic behind the choices made.
very good. This is one, and I know we're going to be asking for a certificate of appropriateness here. I think the building is not unattractive, and I like the colors. I'm not so sure I'm happy with the building where it is. And I recognize the fact that you're showing us all the buildings that have been put up in the last 5 years that are a little farther out of the central business district or the historic district. And they progressed as they went through. But I think what we would have to do is get if somebody's willing to offer a certificate of appropriateness, then I think maybe we want to have a vote on that on a per person type vote.
I have a couple of comments. Are we still in the
Go ahead.
comment section?
Go ahead.
I think, we've touched on some of the detail of what's going on with what we're being presented today. And I think the detailing is not the issue at all. It's the overall forms and the overall contextualism of this building with where it sits. And, when I read the design guidelines, and it always to me gets back to, okay, it's, the baseline is Water Street and the train depot as far as the colors and the type of building, the style of building that's going to be going into this district. And so using the, the Davy building, the Amatec building as your style references, that is like another step and then another step and then another step away from the baseline. And as an example of that, when I look at the rendering and I see South Water Street there and it's showing it as pink, and it's not, it's a deep red. And so that's just sort of another divergence from our baseline. So, and also when you look at the, the Davy, the Amatec building, you see the homage to the window patterns, the horizontality, the capping of the building, the setting the building on a firm base, and those harken back to the style of building that's been there. And so, and here we have a whole bunch of vertical elements going on, and it's a complete, in my eye, it's a complete turn away from what it says in the design guidelines. And so I guess I would refer you to the design guidelines to use those ideas as far as the patterns and the style that I think that we're trying to achieve here.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Bridget.
to your points, Kevin, I think that I appreciate what you're trying to do. I mean, the only thing that we have to apply are those design guidelines, but there wasn't anything in those that foresaw a 6-story building, to my knowledge. And I think to compare this to a train depot is, I mean, of course, this building would come up short against it, and particularly the train depot that we have that was built, I don't know when, a long time ago. And it's, true to its style. It's historically significant, and it is, of course, this across the street. But to kind of compare this to that is apples to oranges. So I don't know that your points are invalid. It's more a question for me about how useful and practical the design guidelines are, and that's a much bigger question than maybe we can discuss right now. But it also doesn't, to my knowledge, call out Franklin as a special street. We know, to me, Franklin's a special street, and we know that it's different than the streets around it. But to say that this has to conform to some additional standard that's not actually written is also kind of not up to us, I don't think. I mean,
Well, I think it is up to us, Bridget,
Yeah.
because that's what they're asking us to do. And as far as a 6-story building is concerned, since we all know that you could build a 6-story building in the downtown area, I guess I never thought that it wasn't part of the design guideline. But I understand your point.
I appreciate your point, Bridget, and I guess the Davy, the Amatec building, those are 3-story buildings, and that they have the horizontality, they have the patterns, they have the things that are described in the design guidelines. And do we have something to refer to? That's what we have to refer to is the design guidelines as to what it is that are our guidelines.
I'm not sure that this is missing out on that. If it's the sawtooth shape, that is, in many ways, it's breaking the molds. The Davy and Amatec buildings had a massive curve on them that was, not referenceable downtown. So when I look at the brick, when I look at the base, when I look at the top and the horizontal banding, I mean, the windows are obviously well organized. They aren't all storefront style. There's operable windows. There's smaller punched openings. I don't, if the curve worked, I think the sawtooth could kind of fall into that same category where the majority of the building is a pretty direct reference to those design guidelines. And here the sawtooth is more akin to that curve, which is, a contribution at this current moment to a building that's being built now. But
I'm not objecting to the sawtooth form, but what that form does is it starts diverging away from the horizontality of what the guidelines are, what you see in the Davy and the Amatec building. When you incorporate that sawtooth, then it makes it difficult to get a continuous cap on there and do some of the other things that are spelled out for us that we're looking for.
Anybody else have comments?
I guess this is Steve with LDA. I guess I would just like to comment. I guess it has been probably months, not weeks, since we had done our preliminary review, and I think that's probably even before the quarantine. So it's probably February or March. But at that time, we didn't get any feedback from you on the form, because I believe that was kind of referenced as a zoning, that's a zoning issue. And as you said, the form for a 6-story building is going to kind of be what it is. The other comments that you guys gave us the last meeting, we've tried to, really take those to heart, and, we tried to provide that, the base, the middle, and the top of the building, and really refine the details to reflect the comments you had at the last meeting. So that's what we've tried to do.
And we appreciate that. Any other board members with a comment?
Not a board member, but I just wanted to say, this is Tim Dean, representing the developer. Again, I echo Steve's comments. We tried to take the comments from the informal meeting, and I think this is a beautiful building. This would be a great attractive asset to downtown Kent. We're working with the city to incorporate fixing up the parking lot over there that is cinders now. So sitting next to, I know it's hard to, like the one young lady said regarding, it's hard to duplicate a Trinos in a 6-story apartment building. So I think this is 500% improvement over what Fairmounts, who was the previous developer, had approved.
Very good. We appreciate that. Would anyone like to offer a certificate of appropriateness?
I would, and I would condition that motion on approving the rendering and not the line drawings, which we noted a few discrepancies with.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Okay, hearing none. I think the motion dies without a second. Is that right, Eric?
That's correct.
Okay. So
Is it possible for someone to second it with additional conditions?
Who's that?
This was Steve with LDA.
No, Steve.
Is it possible
Steve, let me
for
tell you
if someone else
something,
has?
I think probably, I think we were pretty clear on the thoughts, and we certainly will work with you on, but I have to tell you, there doesn't seem to be a lot of support for the design at this point, and that's really all we're looking at. There are a lot of I think a lot of good things about it, the colors, some of the things like that. I didn't hear a lot of comments about that, but some of the materials. It's just to a lot of us, this is an extremely important location, and some of us fought very hard to get it to look the way it is today. And we want this building to be something very special, as you do. And this, to me, as I've said earlier, this is a very nice building. This is not the location for it. And I guess that's just my thought on it. But we'd love to work with you on this design, but you've got to meet us. You can't, and don't look at the railroad station and say we want it designed that way. That's not it at all. However, we don't want it to be so distinctly unique that it deteriorates from the historic value of the neighborhood.
It might be advisable to give them specificity as to what you're looking at. The height is a non-issue with regards to that the zoning allows the 60 feet. So maybe let them know what they need to be addressing before they come back.
I guess I don't have a problem at all with the height, frankly. It's in the footprint. and the use of the building, the windows. I think you want to try to use the windows. I think a general window pattern may be a little bit more acceptable. They've been building buildings with patios or for years. So I think you can do this. I just, you architects, I'm the historian here. You architects, come up with something to help these guys.
I'm looking at the Amatec building and they don't have a continuous roof band. And in particular, the curve, which I cited before, does break that top in a pretty dramatic way, which again, I liken the same item, the same formal quality here, which is breaking that top band, is to me being done in a really similar way to something that's already there, both the Amatec and Davie buildings.
And Bridget, you have to understand that that building came to us 5 times before we finally approved it the way it is. It took them 3 times before they read the design guidelines. So at least these guys have read the design guidelines. Any other comments?
Should we look at because I'm at a loss to what we're supposed to change. This is Tim Dean. Should we look at what was approved by Fairmount as your guideline?
You talking about the more industrial type style building that was there?
The one that they approved, that was approved by ARB. Do you have that, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to share that now. Can you guys see this was what was previously approved?
Now look at that and look at the building we're presenting. I don't think that fits in.
Well, we appreciate your thought on that.
Do you like it, sir?
Do I like it? I didn't like it. I didn't like that. No, but
Okay, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
no, I didn't like it. I think you can do a lot better than that, Tim.
I think we did.
But yeah, I guess I'm surprised. I'm surprised because of the response we got at the previous meeting for the informal review. It seems like we got a lot more opposition today when we've spent several months trying to improve the previous design. So I guess I'm not sure why those comments, the kind of this opposition wasn't presented more at the informal review.
I don't mean to cut you off, but this isn't exactly the discussion phase of the project anymore. If there aren't any other motions right now, the applicant can either request to have this matter tabled for applicant can request to have it continued or submit a new application, or it can die as it is right now for lack of a second. But to further discussion with the board is not really appropriate at this juncture.
Okay. Very good.
So that would be the applicant to decide whether or not they want to request a continuance at this moment. And I still would request that the board give a little more specificity as to what you would like them to be considering. I think that's still a little vague for them.
Well, go ahead. I mean, to me, I think the building should have a cap on it. I think the building should have regular windows, regular line windows, regular, and once again, I'm not the architect here. I'm the something that is a little bit more acceptable. You can look at the old design, and it is more traditional than the new one. There's no question about that. It doesn't mean I liked it, but it is more traditional.
To address Bridget Sussel's point, I understand what Bridget Tipton, what she's saying about, okay, the curve on the Amatec and the Davie, all right, those are divergent forms, and here we have the sawtooth form, and I can see where those are thought of as similar. So, but to address Ms. Sussel's question, what specifically can we give them to try and emulate is, as you're looking at the Amatec and Davie building, it's the horizontality. Howard touched about the cap that he's looking for on the building, and in those buildings from a few years ago. It's the horizontality. It's the patterns of the windows. These are all spelled out in the design guidelines, and they're that you have in the project that for this site, the previous project that was approved. We weren't crazy about the building, but it did have the horizontality to it. It had the cap, it had some of those things, but we weren't all crazy about what we ended up with. But it fit in better with the context of the district. That doesn't mean we were 100% giddy about what we got, but it fit in better with the context of the district. And I think if you take those elements from the Ametek and Davie buildings and work with those, that's going to get more towards what the design guidelines describe as what we want to see in this district. I hope that addresses Ms. Susel's point.
Okay, very good. If there's no one else on the board that would like to comment, we should move on.
Yeah. Is the applicant going to request a continuance at this point, or do we let the motion stand? This would be the applicant to comment at this point.
I guess I'm not sure if you can maybe explain what the implications are of each option. If we were to resubmit, is there a difference between the two options here?
No, it's
Not
certainly
so.
resubmitted.
Go ahead, Eric. I'll let Eric speak to it. Go ahead, Eric.
If you seek to have the matter continued, then we will put you back on the agenda and you'll be given the opportunity to present a updated project without having to go through re-advertising and all the other steps. I mean, the city will still do its notifications. If you seek to have it stand as it is right now, then this begins your time frame for either appealing the Architecture Review Board's decision, or you can submit an entirely new application and start from step one. All three options are yours.
Yes, I would let Tim, if you could give the final answer, if you want to go with the continuance option.
Yeah, we'll go with the continuance.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So we will continue that to the next meeting or to the meeting that you can attend. Okay, very good.
We will plan on submitting for the next meeting.
Okay, very good. All right, the next thing on the agenda is each and every mural at 56 North Water Street.
Yes, I'll be presenting that one.
Okay,
I'll share my screen so that we can all see it.
Just to interrupt for a second,
Yes.
I wasn't able to see if you were sworn in. I presume that you were, but I didn't actually see that. So I want to verify that you're sworn in.
I did not get to yet. Thank you.
All right, well then anyone that's still here that is going to be testifying, if you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give before the Architecture Review Board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can you all see my screen there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. So we are presenting an updated mural design. We came, I think it was around this time last year, maybe in September. And this is for 156 North Water, which is just next to Hometown Bank and right next to the mill. And so we have an updated design to share with you guys. The kind of location is really what influenced the design of the mural. And so I want to talk about the concept a little bit. The alley here that goes between the street from North Water runs directly towards the river. And so that connection point was sort of the background concept, kind of connecting the architecture of the city and then the natural resources of the town. And so our hope was to, well, the artist Stephanie Brewer, who worked on this, her hope was to kind of draw on this. And when you walk into that alley space, it's a really quiet, calm space. And so we wanted to pool some of the historical details from the different buildings that are surrounding it, and then also pull on some of the natural resources in an abstract way to represent those things. And so last time when we came in, this design actually stretched to the top of the building, and it was much more narrow. And what we did was went back and looked at the space. And when you're in that space, there's obviously a really narrow sight distance. You can't see, you can look up pretty high, but we ended up bringing down the height of it quite a bit to match where the wood is on the front of the facade, so that it kind of continues around the side of the building from the front. And then another thing to note is that these forms, if we look at the last page, the colors before were much different, and formally some of the shapes were much different. And so what Stephanie did was looked a lot at the architecture of the city, referencing the train tracks, sort of the curving of the river, the stone bridge, even right next to where this will be going, there's the 3 arches as a part of the Williams Brothers mill. And then even if you're there later in the day, some of the shadows that get cast make some really interesting shapes that kind of draw shadow from the mill. And then we also drew some colors from the rest of the town, especially some of the brick colors, and then the mint and green colors from the sky, the river, and some of the other buildings. And so you can see those 3 arches. Those forms are repeated a lot. They show up a lot, especially on the mill right next to it. And then we've created some more alignment with where the building's currently painted. And then through those, the train tracks are sort of a representational curve that kind of go in between those, and also represent some of the river. So I think that's about all. Just a couple technical notes. The colors in here are, those would be matched with the Sherwin-Williams exterior paint. And then in terms of actually applying it, those would be blended in spaces where they overlap. Those would be blended as like a custom blend by Stephanie. And then there is some additional work before this would be applied in terms of addressing some of the mortar that's on the side, just to make it a really smooth surface. I think that's all.
Great. Any comments about this?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I was in support of this before when we saw it about a year ago, and I would like to express support again. I'm particularly interested in a few qualities about it, although I'm not sure that the content is, I mean, I think it's a beautiful piece, but the idea of a mural in this district, again, we've approved a few others. Having a mural here, I think, would be a great addition. I appreciate that the content is quite different from some of the others in its expression, but particularly the other mural which we've approved that is of the river, I really like that this captures, such a central part of the city, but it captures the essence of it in a new way. And I also like the way that the transparency that's happening here and the way that Alex explained the custom blends. That's something that the Hall Green mural is also going to have. So there's this connection across this district in likeness in some of the techniques, which I think is a really cool feature and something that's coming forward much more in this mural than the previous version. I think it would be hard for anyone to say that this is not an improvement to the side of the building as it is. And it definitely has merit, in my opinion, to be added here to the alleyway. facade. I also appreciate the references that you've given for the color selection. It's very clear, and as Alex mentioned, significantly different from the previous version, in a way that is maybe a little bit more of the place, which I'm not sure that all artistic murals need to draw the color directly from the area around. I mean, it's one approach, and in this case, I think it lends to a really attractive composition. One thing too, you've held the mural back from the cornerstones, and it's not really a coin, but you've held it back a little bit from the face, which I remember being a comment from before. So I appreciate that you've taken that into consideration.
Any other comments?
Will the side of the building be painted, repainted?
The part that's further down, there's potential for that to be repainted. There's at least cleaned, if anything. I know that Nate has been working with getting a lot of the building restored. And so one of the hopes was that we'd be able to actually remove some of that, the white paint that's actually on there. I believe if anything, the maroon side that's already painted there to match the facade, that might be updated prior. But as far as the back, I can't say for sure.
I like the arches piece of it, but I'm not quite sure about the river/railroad track part. But it's a little different from the other ones we've approved, but I like the colors though.
Dennis, do you have a comment?
I guess the river/railroad track thing, I would, if the arch is there supposed to represent the bridge, and I would think somehow those ought to weave through the bottom, and then maybe the other one just on top, rather than going from the bottom up to the top. And that's all I have. Colors are good.
Yeah, I like the colors. How wide is that alley?
Probably no more than 10 feet, I'd say.
So, you're showing us.
This is
Oh,
Nate.
sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I think I can measure it if you want. I think it's wider than 10. By quite a bit, actually.
Probably. I have to admit, I think that you're showing it to us at the most advantaged spot, which will go by very fleetingly. I mean, it's the majority of people coming up North Water Street aren't going to see this. It's not prominent. I guess I agree with, I think it was Dennis that said, I think that or maybe Dave, the water is a little more prominent than the arches, and I realize the arches are the arches not in the bridge, but in the Williams Brothers building.
Oh, okay.
And I appreciate that. That's nice that you brought that in. I don't have a problem with the colors. I really, I like the fact that you started it after the facade. I guess, this is your building. You guys can do what you want with it. I would wish that you would paint the entire side of the building if you're going to do this, because that would be more beneficial to the building than the mural, to have that side of the building finished. But
Howard, can I address that real quick?
Sure.
So we just got a roof permit. This is Nate, building owner.
And it's Nate. Yeah, Nate, you were going to do it 2 years ago, right?
What's that?
You were going to put the facade on 2 years ago.
Well, we got the permits again, if that's helpful. But so there's actually we have the roof permits now, and we are actually going to be building a slightly higher parapet wall on that north side just because of fire code. But I think, at the very least, we'll need to repoint pretty much the whole side of the building because of the way that there's been runoff over the years down the side of the wall. So I think we're open to, I wouldn't say like from the rest of the building standpoint. I think we're open to painting, and I think we'll want to look and see how, as we repair that wall, the actual brick looks. I think there is a nice brick color underneath, but if we need to paint it, we're open to that. And to your point, Howard, the alley is 8 feet wide. I just measured it.
It's 8 feet wide. I
It
know
is.
it's very tight. And so, you know, the
It
mural's
is.
a nice idea. It's just not going to be seen very well because it's such a small alley, but that's entirely, it's, you know, it's your money.
Sure.
The, you know, but I would, you know, do we need a certificate of appropriateness on this one too? Yeah. You know, maybe we could offer a certificate of appropriateness with the recommendation that the side of the building be repaired before the mural goes on. I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Is that in our purview? Can we make somebody do that?
Not really, because it's more of a code issue, but you could specify that, you know, it'd be, yeah, you know, a recommendation to, yeah.
I guess to what Howard's saying here is that, you know, one of the points I had is, oh, okay, the mural is the size that it's being shown. And if the rest of that wall is left as is, that's the first thing that jumps to my mind is, oh boy, there's other work that could have been done here to make the building look better. That's outside the mural area. But still, that's the owner's decision to do that and what part they want to repair and what part they don't. But in an aesthetic thing, you know, yeah, it would look a lot nicer. First of all, if the whole building or if the whole wall were repaired, painted, and then the mural came. It's kind of the same thing that Howard said, but a little bit different.
Well, somebody's going to have to make some sort of a recommendation if we want to move on.
Can we recommend that the mural be bigger so that it covers the entire wall? You know, that's sort of a different way to look at it. It's like, all right, yeah, we're going to recommend that the mural that's shown in that size is approved, or we recommend that the mural be bigger. What's shown is approved in that size, but the mural is painting the rest of the wall, essentially.
I don't think we can do that.
I don't know.
I think we can approve it effectively the way it is, but we can recommend that they address the exterior wall of the whole north side of the building. I don't think we can force them to do that. That's as Bridget says, that's a code issue. I don't think it's against code to be ugly. And frankly, you know, they painted back.
That's unfortunate for our building.
Painted back about 30 feet, which is effectively all anybody can see. And the rest of it may just be, as Nate said, it needs repointed probably, and there's probably brick there, but you know, that building was built. Nate, do you remember when that building was built? I mean, I don't remember. I don't think you remember.
Yeah, the late 1895, I think is what it was.
Because
If it's helpful.
And I don't know where they were getting their brick at that time, so it may be a soft brick, but you'll find that out.
And if it's helpful, we have had structural look at it. It is sound. And the plan is to repoint and repair the wall before the mural goes on.
Okay.
If that's helpful.
Just curious, is the conduit in use? Can that come off?
The what?
I believe that is the fiber going to Hometown.
Oh, you don't need that.
We can just take it out.
What is that?
I think it's the fiber optic cable.
The pipe on the side of the building. Then we wouldn't have Howard in these Zoom meetings.
Actually, I think what that is, no, that's not, I don't think that's the Zoom. I think what that is, believe it or not, is a Spectrum line that runs it, that they had at the mill, that they extended it across our roof so that they could, at the plaza, they could play, you know, some of you may remember a few years ago when the Indians were in the playoffs, we actually broadcast it live in the plaza, and that's what that was for. That's can see everything is underground there, and there is no Spectrum cable going to the building. So I think that's all that is. And it's, I don't think it's been used in years, but I shouldn't say that. I'm not the authority on that. I'd have to talk to Scott McCool.
One question I have on the mural is a couple of points is I like the arches across the bottom, and it's less abstract than the previous version. And again, I like the way you left the cornerstone of the building left to be its own element. What in the upper left corner? What's the black rectangle?
It's a window, isn't it?
It's just.
So that looks like there actually is another arch there. So some of the arches, the three together obviously reference the building right next to it. But the arches in general are just kind of an homage, I suppose, to, more loosely tied to some of the other arches, like on the windows and things like that. So
what is that square? What is
The rectangle in the upper.
So the darker rectangle is just a part of that arch there, I guess is what I was trying to say. And the train track river kind of goes through there. And so that was just to add in another dark element to sort of bring some weight to the top of the mural so that it's not all like completely light up there.
So
What that rectangle, that dark, I'm going to call it a black rectangle. It looks like a window initially, and then you have the pattern of the windows on the upper floor, but then you have the one in the mural that's then not centered on the window above. And what are your thoughts on that? I guess my question is, what is that? It looks like a window because it's a dark black rectangle. It's in those proportions of a window.
I think it was just a visual color change on that arch, but it's not really representing anything specific. Arch? I'm sorry, the top arch here. Can you see my arrow at all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there is an arch that curves over here, and I think there was just a simple color shift that happened to add some visual interest to this area, but it's not necessarily a window. Or
Alex, this is Bridget. Maybe show the cover page from your app, the whole packet you submitted. There you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you.
So it's just a part of that rectangular form. And again, it's not really meant to represent anything specific, I don't think. But there's always the option that we could, turn that portion gray as well.
I can see that because maybe it's not meant to represent anything specific in the confines of the mural, but in the confines of the entire wall, it looks like a window.
Sure.
And it looks like a window that's not in line with the windows that are the existing windows.
So would you be willing to offer a certificate of appropriateness if that were just altered? And
well, yeah, I don't mean to play artist here, but I guess my reaction would be to take the sort of the shale blue square and continue it over to the left. What do you think of that?
And bring that white form all the way down?
Yeah, I tend to want to say we could open that back up to Stephanie to make adjustments. I don't want to say anything in specific, but we can take a look at that. I definitely agree.
Well,
if it can't be definitive at this decision, then the certificate of appropriate. So if they pass it, Alex, and say that has to be removed, then it would have to be removed. So do you want to continue this and talk to the artist first before they make a vote on removing that black rectangle?
I would say we can just either remove or soften it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay.
Thanks for the thumbs up there.
Oh, she's okay with
Do that.
Okay, so
Stephanie's okay with it.
To clarify, what you'd be doing is just squaring off that big blue rectangle and bringing the water back around again. Is that correct?
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, that's simple. So would that satisfy everyone? Could we get a certificate of appropriateness based on that adjustment? Well, you guys are tough tonight.
Go for it, Bridget.
I was looking at you. That was your adjustment.
Well, I thought
Kevin?
you were gonna suggest the motion for a certificate of appropriateness.
I
Yeah.
I would be happy to. Sure.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'd like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness with the softening or reduction of the dark square or dark
Okay.
rectangle.
As described. Okay, Is-
I would second that.
okay. Does everybody understand it? We're-
Yes.
Okay, very good. We're taking the
Got it.
blue, we're moving it around and bringing the water back down through. Okay. And the artist understands it, so that's really the only one that really needs to understand it.
I understand.
Very good. So is there, there's a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, great. Well, that we've certainly earned our money tonight.
We have minutes. Yeah, we do have a set of minutes that need.
Yes, I know we do. Yeah, we have minutes
yeah.
to approve the minutes of the September 16th or 15th meeting. Is there a motion to approve them as presented? Who was there?
I was there. Motion to approve.
And I think there were only, I don't think we were, well, members present.
Everyone was there except for
was-
Dave,
Okay, everybody was there. Okay. So we
except
need
for
a-
Dave.
Yeah.
I'll second the
Okay,
approval motion.
very good. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you. Now let's, is that all? we
Dave, you
have?
abstained, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other business? I think we,
No?
so last meeting was one of our shortest. This is one of our longest. I guess they even out. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Our
A
next
motion,
meeting-
motion to adjourn,
is there
anyone?
a Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second it.
second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. Our next meeting will be November.
Third.
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 Definitely. Do we have something on the agenda?
I don't know.
I think there will definitely be a building on.
Well, it could potentially be the one that you just, that was just continued by the applicant,
Yeah,
the apartments.
right. Very good. Okay, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.